So you guys, I mean, I've gotten to know you a little bit. You are both amazing change makers. Kind of tell us a little bit about your background as a starting point.
Sure. Well, thanks, and Christina. And first, I just want to say thanks to Social Innovation Summit for having me back. I'm really excited and honored to be here with you again this year. And, you know, I've been really lucky. I work for a really cool company that marries two of my passions. So at Blackbaud, we sit at the intersection of technology and social good. And I'm passionate about both of them. And Blackbaud, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we spend 100% of our time and our effort working to develop tools and solutions for the social good community. So that's everything from nonprofits to foundations, education institutions, hospitals, and individual change makers. And our mission really allows us to have an altitude to see across the entire social good community. And you know, this altitude allows us to see what everybody in this room, I think, intuitively knows, that when you look at the movements that are going on today and you look at the trends, at the center of it is the individual. And being able to effectively channel individuals' toolkits, Justin's gonna talk about their soul dreams, their passions, their voice, their dollars, to maximize the impact in your cause. That's where we're gonna see real drive forward in the social good community, and that's what we as Blackbaud are focused on.
That's great. What about you?
Yeah, so for the last 10 years, I've woken up every day trying to fix other people's problems, particularly people, about 40 million plus people that are living currently in modern day slavery. And that started off with campaigns that we initially did. We created something called Slavery Footprint with the State Department years ago. There are over 30 million people have sought the answer to the question, do you want to know how many slaves work for you? We created that, put that out in 2011. What happened from that was what we found is in order to create change, particularly in slavery and supply chains, and then slavery and the products that we use every day, in order to create the change we wanted to, we were going to have to figure out how to help capitalism and slavery. And so we've built software now that we sell to companies that allow them to monitor and detect forced and child labor in their supply chains. And then we empower the practitioners inside of, and the procurement executives inside of large companies to use their purchasing power to disrupt the business of slavery. So
talk about markets.
And can I do a quick plug?
Yes.
I just want to say I was lucky enough. Justin sent me an early copy of his book, and I was able to read it a few weeks.
It's like Oprah, right?
It is like Oprah. A few books ago, or a few weeks ago.
Big deal.
And I have to say, it's a wonderful book. He peppers it with stories of people putting meaning in their life, and it really kind of made me think about how I find my own riot to get involved in. So anyway, I want to plug that because it really is a special
and I'm going to take you everywhere I go.
Yeah, it's good.
So I want to frame up this conversation. Last year at this Social Innovation Summit, Catherine, you started a conversation. For those in the audience who weren't here for that, can you just tee that back up for us? So it's a kind of a foundation for where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year I talked about this concept of the social economy. And so for those of you who weren't here last year, just to start with a definition of what the social economy is. So the social economy is the space where all good is produced, no matter what sector you work in, so public, private, or social sector. So basically everybody in this room operates in the social good economy or is contributing to the social good economy. And the social economy, like any economy, can be healthy or unhealthy, strong or weak, large or small. But what we know is that a thriving, healthy social economy means that more good is produced more effectively. And when we look at the social economy, we know that the most powerful renewable resource is the individual. And so it goes back to what we're here talking about on how do we channel their engagement to maximize impact for our cause so that we're driving greater participation more effectively, which will drive that stronger social economy, which will produce more good in the world.
That's great. So sort of from that foundation and the kind of individual as the currency, the way that individuals have interacted with causes is changing, especially as mobile, social, and other tech advances sort of help people engage differently. Justin, maybe you could start us off by talking a little bit about how we can catalyze the impact of individuals kind of in that context of where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting. It's something we have to pay attention to almost on an hour-by-hour basis. If you take the average short-term attention span and you measure it, I don't know if you've heard the stat, maybe all of you have, between, I think it's around 2001 to 2015, a study was done to measure the short attention span of most individuals. And in around 2001, the short attention span was about 15 seconds or so.
Okay.
Now it's 8. Which means
we've lost everybody's attention,
yeah,
is what you're saying.
I didn't say it quick enough. Dang it. Which means that our average attention span is less than that of a goldfish.
Wow.
But.
Wow.
Yeah. But the depth and our response to information is still the same. So what I think is interesting is while we have short attention, we still have a huge desire for authenticity and for a message that resonates with us. So this is like, it's not just in the social good, but this goes for anyone. I'm seeing a lot of brands that we're meeting are now trying to punch through all the noise in the media and trying to get more attention because they're facing the same challenges that anyone else is, and trying to move towards a more authentic message.
Interesting.
What's interesting though, and I don't know how many of you have heard of the term virtue signaling. Do you know this term? Well, I'm just dropping it everywhere I go because it makes me sound smart. Virtue signaling is the idea that we know it's a dynamic that's happening in a social space where you can signal to something that matters to you without ever going there. So you can pull social currency, if I can get into the currency thing, you can pull social currency from yourself, whether you're an individual or a brand, without making any investment. And so we've seen some companies trying to get into this space and trying to work out of it and trying to capture that attention, where really the whole point of the social good economy, really you should be pushing out what you're already good at. And so trying to attach to things that matter, you think are mattering, or think that matter, the reality is, and what I think you're getting at from a millennial perspective is, what's intrinsically good about you as a company, and how can you express that so that, and that is the greatest differentiator, and not follow the virtue signaling.
Yeah, interesting.
What I love about what you just said, I mean, we when, at Blackbaud, we look at it, we call it open source activists today, right? And that's really everybody in this room. So we've got, a lot of them are millennials. I mean, that's a broad generalization, but a lot of them are, who are so passionate about going out there and doing something. Everybody in this room, like, you are passionate about doing something, but you don't want somebody to tell you how to do it. You're not looking for a nonprofit to give you a playbook on how to interact with them. And the other thing about these open source activists, they care about the cause, or are more focused on the cause, than they are most of the time the organization that they may be working with to forward that cause. And the other thing is that technology is the way they're engaging, right? That is how they're making their voice heard. And so being on the front line, I mean, we at Blackbaud, we're always trying to figure out how we innovate technology so that we're better connecting these individuals, these open source activists, with the organizations they want to work with and vice versa. But you have to understand how these open source activists think, right? I mean, they look, social good is a networked activity. And their networks, they look at their networks as valuable as the dollars that they're going to give to a cause. And so understanding that, and understanding from a technology standpoint how you tap into that is so important and able to catalyze their impact.
So interesting. I mean, back to that sort of toolkit. What do I want to offer to the world? So set this in the context. I mean, it's hard not to ask this question today. Set this in the context of what's happening in Washington.
Yes. Well, I mean, come on. We all know that, the current political landscape is driving change in the social good space. I mean, look, Planned Parenthood, 80,000 donations the weekend after the election. ACLU, $24 million raised in one weekend after the election. Meals on Wheels, they get a bump in funding the minute we start hearing about budgets being cut. And I guarantee, with all this talk around the Paris Climate Agreement, we're going to see environmental organizations get a bump. What we call this, it's the rage donation, right? Mm-hmm. People are angry, and they're putting their money where their anger is. They don't like the way things are. This is good, but historically, we see these momentary bumps, right? These episodic donors. It's good, but it's not driving long-term health in the social economy. And so what we really want to see, and what we as organizations who are working in the space need to think about, is how we transform this rage donor, this episodic donor, into what we call an act-giver, right? How do we turn this rage donation, this rage donor, into a lifelong advocate, into a productive resource that knows how to tap in their skill set, and so that they're tapping into their skill set for one cause, and for another cause, and for another cause.
Interesting.
Right? It becomes a movement. And so that's what we really want to see. That's what we need to figure out as a group on how we take these rage donations, leverage technology, and turn them into a movement, turn them into lifelong act-givers.
Interesting. So this idea of act-giving, you hear a lot about how millennials in particular are changing the way they interact with companies. I think this is really, sort of at the crux of what you were talking about, sort of leveraging what companies are good at, or are naturally doing or good at, and kind of putting that out into the world. So how do corporations think about sort of taking advantage of, sort of separating themselves, or not, from what's happening in Washington, but separating the conversation out to think about not just the political landscape, but really the kind of corporate landscape. Justin, you work so much with corporations. Can you talk a little bit about how are different types of organizations, different types of corporations going to get into this?
Before I started working in this field, I always wanted to participate in bigger things. I think we all do. We all want to be a part of a hero's journey, and I think corporations do as well. But what I think we're fed, I think you were saying this about nonprofits too, is like they feed you, you're being fed, give here and we'll go take care of it. We're the professionals, you just make it work for us. I think that those days are over. I think where the tables are turning is, what are you good at, and how can who you are participate in the bigger stories around the world, right? And I think that becomes a differentiator for brands and companies. I think it becomes a differentiator for individuals as well. So what I would like to see, and what I'm starting to see, is people finding ways to invest who they are and what they're good at. So for a company, that can and one of the ways, and we help companies with that, is that we're obviously working to build a free world and make labor fair for everyone. But one of the ways that companies have one of the greatest advantages in the world for doing this is they're some of the biggest buyers in the world. And so what we do with Made in a Free World is we help companies, we take an activity that they're already doing, not creating another one, but take an activity that a company already does, buying, because every company buys things, and we help them do that better. So we say, we're helping you buy better by and we offer them our software that gives them an analysis on where and who and what to buy from. And this is actually a great differentiator because it fixes a problem inside of a company, but gives them a differentiator to express themselves to a market and not virtue signal, but actually signal from the inside of this matters to us. And we'll never be perfect, and the whole point isn't being perfect. It's not about being perfect, it's about participating. And I think if you can do that as a company, and you can do that as an individual, that really is a way to be able to express your true identity. No individual, no company can fix all the problems, but everyone is uniquely gifted and uniquely designed to fix some problems, and I think that's part of what participating in this economy means.
You must get an interesting reaction from the employees of the corporations you talk to. These corporations really are just lots of employees, right?
Sure.
They're right? We're talking about individuals at the heart. They're made up of these individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've talked to several people that come up to me, this is going to sound weird, come up to me crying after a procurement conference, which procurement conferences probably make anyone cry, but crying because they now have a tool that they can use at their desk. The dream here is, can you do your job and it means something more than just making money? Can we here create opportunities where you don't have to leave your life to make a difference? That to me is the art of change that we're starting to enter into, and that is the way activists and social entrepreneurs need to think about, how do we take the learnings of the sharing economy, how do we create efficiencies at scale and not have to recreate the wheel every single year? How can we create that inside of the entities that already exist?
Yeah, what I love about what you said too, and my colleague Rachel Hutchinson here, and many of you know her, we've talked about this, at Blackbaud as part of the social economy, that corporations have a responsibility, in this space, and it all starts with looking inward. We talk about individuals at the heart of all these movements, and Rachel's been leading a conversation about moving the conversation from CSR, corporate social responsibility, to what we call HSR, human social responsibility. And the idea is that when corporations want to tap into the passions of their employees, that they're actually tapping into the passions of their employees. They're letting employees drive how they're giving back. It's not a top-down approach.
That's right.
And again, all goes back to, they don't want a playbook. They don't want you to tell them how to give back. They want to lead. They want to be empowered to give they want. And I think corporations have a real opportunity now to approach CSR in a different way.
I would say too, I think the walls between departments is starting to break down as well. We had CSR, we had purchasing, we have marketing, with all the rest of it. There's a lot of conversation about how we can distribute good across all of those and not just put it into one side. Next week, I'm going to, one of our partners is SAP, and their procurement side is called SAP Ariba, and they've been a partner with ours for years, and our technology's embedded into what they do. The theme of the conference next week is procurement with purpose. I don't think those words have ever been said. So we're living at there's like giddy enthusiasm around how can we take the actions that we've been doing for a long time that seem really boring, and how can we do that and add purpose to it? And I think it's an exciting time to be around.
It's interesting, the conversation really reminds me of something I heard yesterday when Van Jones talked about listening.
Yes.
Right, about how we need to increasingly get better at listening. There's a lot of putting it out there, and this is sort of what you're talking about in terms of the virtue signal, and it really instead an HSR, right, really listening to what employees, what donors, what corporations, what they really are looking for. So okay, we've got a couple minutes left. Give me your kind of 2 or 3 high-level. What advice do you have for these guys as they kind of go out into the world? Your kind of 2 or 3 takeaways.
2 or 3, can I just give one?
I mean, one would be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Riffing off of what you just said, I think, I just, for myself, I'm not hungry for more information. I'm hungry for invitation.
That's great.
I think we fool ourselves, and I'm the worst at it, that like everyone really wants what we have to say. But really, we all want to participate in something bigger than ourselves. And if we can figure out ways to distribute and open source participation, I think we can change the world much more quickly.
I love that.
Agreed.
I'm way more talkative, obviously, because I have 3 things in my mind. So the first one, say yes. These open source activists want to participate, empower them to participate. And I love what you said about listening. The best organizations, we have social listening tools, listen. Find conversations that matter. Don't insert yourself into those conversations. Listen, learn, figure out how to empower the people that want to work with you, your supporters, your potential donors. 2, I'm a marketer. So I think about this from a marketing hat, right? It's no longer one-to-one marketing no longer works. Right message to the right individual. It needs to be one to the moment. It's the right message to the right individual in the right context, in the right moment. It's about speaking to the world, to your potential donors, to your supporters, and the channels where they are. And then 3rd, be transparent. These open source activists today, they do not see themselves as consumers. They see themselves as partners. Let them be your partner. Because we talked about what that means. If you catalyze the impact of these guys and you partner with them, it means greater participation. It means that you're more effectively maximizing their impact, which means that we are driving towards a truly thriving and healthy social economy, and that's what we want.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you. This is fantastic. Thank you.